Hello everyone and welcome to our review of The Lighthouse. I'm Tony Southcott.
And I'm Komet. First off, let's talk about what we liked.
That's a dirty trick you're pulling on these people. But I liked the cinematography to a point. Like, there were some moments where it's like, that's a really beautiful shot, and whenever you've got a lighthouse, it's easy because of spirals and cool stuff like that. It was weird because of the one-to-one camera ratio. It's just a perfect square on the screen. But the black and white, it was cool to do that.
Did you like that? I thought you didn't like that.
The
black and white.
I don't mind black and white.
Oh, I thought you said something on the way home. That was my bad.
No, I didn't mind the black and white. I just feel like whenever you're, like, sometimes people use black and white to compensate, to make it more of an art film so they can explain away things that don't make sense.
I really liked the black and white. I thought it was beautifully shot. The cinematography was really great. They had some incredible storm scenes.
Yeah, the ocean raging and so on.
Yeah,
Willem Dafoe looks natural in black and white as a
does.
like sailor type guy. Like, he's very much like.
I think his teeth were really white, so it helped out.
Yeah.
On that note, I really liked the acting. I thought Willem Dafoe, always an incredible actor, and Robert Pattinson, I was very surprised about. I know very little about him. I've seen him in Twilight, and so that's kind of like the gauge that I get him at. But I thought he did a great job.
If you want to know what Robert Pattinson's acting chops really are, look up the movie Rover. It's an Australian movie with Guy Pearce that he did where he played... It's a post-apocalypse movie where he plays a semi-retarded person.
Oh, okay.
And he's fantastic in it.
Okay.
And, like, it's, like, Robert Pattinson, I don't even mind that he's Batman because he was so good in Rover. This movie shows that he still has acting chops. He's not just a pretty boy. But
I don't think he's that pretty.
Oh, I mean, you got to see him masturbate 3 times in this movie.
Okay,
so maybe,
we're gonna get there, but
maybe
first,
the
what
luster is gone.
What do you like? So, did you like the acting?
I liked the acting. Like, some of the delivery of lines, like, felt very intense and very, like, just completely out there. They actually knew how to do their comedic timing really well. Like, it felt like whenever they were trying to be funny, they actually did nail that.
Which this movie had some genuine laughs. At a certain point, I made it a point not to laugh, and we'll talk about that later. But it had some good genuine laughs.
Yeah, and like there were also some laughs that were drawn from the crowd that I think weren't supposed to draw laughs.
Yes.
So like we'll get to that in a minute too.
Unintentional comedy, I think.
Yeah, we're not 100% sure on how intentional some of that was, or if it was just that there were some people laughing at inappropriate times. But
that
being said,
I hated it. I can't believe there's so many good reviews on the internet
91%
about
on Rotten
how
Tomatoes.
incredible this movie is. It was awful.
See, I think that might be like a Chinese social media campaign style thing, like a Russian bot.
It doesn't make sense. It literally doesn't make sense how well it's being reviewed right now.
Go ahead.
Other than the 2 things that we said, I literally don't think that there's anything else that can be said on my opinion of this movie being good.
Yeah, and I watched The Witch last night with Robert Eggars, and it was amazing, and it was great.
But the main difference between The Witch and this movie is that The Witch had a plot line. There is no plot in this movie.
Yeah.
0. None. The entire movie, you're completely confused about what the fuck is real, what's not, and not in a good way, not in a Jacob's Ladder type of way, but in a way that makes you want to leave. Like, Tony did this horrible trick on both of us is that he looked it up on Google, and Google said that this was an hour and 15-minute long movie.
Yeah, or my brain completely erased that.
Right, and then so I was like, oh, how long is this? And he said an hour and 15 minutes. And I was like, that's kind of strange, whatever. This is about a 2-hour long movie. And us thinking that it was only an hour and so minutes made this movie, I feel like, so much worse. It was a dirty trick.
Not to mention, we already binged 4 hours of like stuff earlier today,
Ooh,
so we were already a little bit, really good stuff.
Good
we were
stuff.
already exhausted, like from that. I know, exhausted whenever you're making movie reviews. It's more about like what you can mentally accomplish in a certain amount of time. But I would say that I honestly did hate this movie.
I did not like.
I like weird movies. I like watching Hodorowski movies where all of a sudden someone has jaguar nipples and I don't know why, and it's hilarious.
What's a jaguar nipple?
Like where they just have 2 jaguar heads that spray milk at people. And it makes more sense than this movie did.
That was not what I thought it was going to be, but okay. Yeah, this movie, like I said, doesn't have a plot line. It has sequences of images and lines that the actors deliver, but there's no beginning, middle, and end, really. It doesn't, there's no explanation about anything that's happening, which I get that a lot of filmmakers don't want to have to hold the hands of the viewers. I totally understand that. This did not do that.
Yeah, I watched a lot of those movies where people are like, this was stupid, I didn't get it, and I'm like, oh, this is, I try to explain it, and I try to give it the benefit of the doubt, and I try to find the symbolism. And I kind of feel like he was trying to go with the Eldritch horror thing, like the Lovecraftian thing, but it never landed, it never felt real, it never felt substantial.
Like, yeah, for me, I felt like immediately after leaving, and I mentioned this to Tony, is that maybe that the edit after the writing and after all the filming cut out a lot of the information that we needed as a viewer to understand what was happening. That's the only explanation that I have for such an amazing writer-director of Eggars really, really just making a big pile of seagull poop.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense, and I really think that either the editor or the director, Eggars, doing all this cut out things that we needed.
Yeah, I just didn't feel it. I didn't care. I laughed, and I enjoyed some of the sequences whenever they're having fun, and then they're fighting, and then they're like making up, and then it gets like
funny.
Weird, and then it like there's a lot of odd eroticism in this movie towards sirens that don't really matter towards anything.
And then lots of like unnecessary masturbation scenes.
Yeah, like we get it after the second time. Like once you get into the third time, you're just like you're literally masturbating.
It's just yeah, and then just I understand that it's supposed to be a descent into madness, but there should be explanations of maybe baselines of who these two people are before you think that they're descending into madness. Tony said it perfectly, is that there was no they were both unreliable narrators, and so you're unable to get a baseline for what is reality and what isn't.
Yeah, you don't have somebody that's tethered you to the ground enough that you can actually figure out who's in the wrong, who's in the right, and that can be compelling when done right, but this is just like, you get ups and downs that don't make sense, you get things being pulled, you get people trying to gaslight each other whenever it's not, like there's no system for that to actually work, and it felt like they were more trying to gaslight the audience than they were trying to actually make a coherent plot.
I agree with that, and like I said before, there's zero resolution. You don't know who these people are. You don't know why they have been kind of marooned on this island. You don't. That's the last scene. Literally doesn't make any sense for the scene before. There's no way for you to connect A and B from the last scene to the second to last scene.
And the only way to make that actually work is to do a giant spoiler for other movies and things that I could explain, but we're not going to here because we're trying to just keep you away from this movie.
Yeah, and I mean, make your own opinion. I'm all for that, but I can guarantee you that in the next couple of weeks that this movie is going to start getting very badly reviewed because there's no way that the general population is going to like this.
Yeah, it was at 85% whenever we left the theater, which is mostly
on
people,
Rotten Tomatoes.
Rotten Tomatoes. I'll have to check IMDb later, but that was what it was whenever we left the theater, and that was in a review period where you could just drop 5 stars and 1 stars before the movie even came out.
Right.
So I think we're going to get a much more accurate view in the coming days. Also, maybe we're just a little too fresh off a Descent of Madness movie like Joker, making it actually look right and showing how to do that, as opposed to this, which felt so random.
They were both trying to kill each other, which is a spoiler.
I don't know if they were both trying to kill each other. I think one was just trying to mess with the other one, but it's like, I couldn't tell. Like, I honestly couldn't tell exactly what they were trying to do because the movie never did a good enough job of showing us so that we could figure it out.
Exactly.
And like, if you know the answer to this or you think you have answers, I want to hear it in the comments. Even if you're trying to like absolutely flame us for like what we're saying here, explain it to me and I might like the movie better. I walked out of No Country for Old Men pissed off, and then it became one of my favorite movies like 2 hours later when I realized what he was trying to say with the movie. So maybe I'm just in like a weird lost period right now where it's just not quite right.
I don't know. I just don't see me sleeping on it and being like, oh yes, totally. It's just not... It is not for the general population.
No.
I can totally see why how really weird, like, moviegoers, indie, like, there's that genre, a niche, and people love that, and I understand that, but this has been very hyped. This has been,
yeah, in horror circles, people have been
released.
talking about this for a while. We saw people coming in with witch t-shirts and stuff that were excited for this movie. And on the festival circuit, it was well reviewed. But with the festival circuit, almost everything gets an extra 1 or 2 star bump because people see so much bad stuff. So to actually see something that evokes some sort of feeling, which I didn't get. People have mentioned claustrophobia, which I didn't get. People have mentioned isolation, which I understood, but it wasn't like... It didn't bother me. Like, the feelings they were trying to elicit in this movie didn't happen to me. Yeah. And maybe that's why I didn't like it, because I wasn't inspired to feel what they were trying to say.
Yeah, this definitely, most of the movie, I was, like, making faces, probably comically, you know, like, what the fuck is happening? What the fuck is happening is literally what I was thinking the entire time.
Yeah.
And then, like, they hint at maybe it being, like, a monster thing, and I was like, oh, cool! I love that! Go with it! And then they never really touched on it again. Yeah. Kind of.
They didn't.
And a delusion-ish.
Yeah, they showed a moment of something, and it didn't change anything for the end of the movie.
It didn't.
And I like unreliable narrators. I like a lot of this other stuff, but it just didn't come together.
I think the unreliable narrator needs to have a good resolution.
Yeah, there needs to be... Like
Jacob's Ladder. Jacob's Ladder was perfect because he was an unreliable narrator during the entire thing because he has no idea.
Two worlds and all this other stuff.
And then the very last 10 seconds, you get the whole thing explained to you. Like, that's how an unreliable narrator works.
Yeah, and like I said, I like challenging movies, and I just didn't feel challenged. I felt like I was being
gaslighted.
Gaslighted a little bit, pushed into something that was smelling its own farts instead of actually making a movie.
Yeah, that's like all that stuff. Make it a comedy if you're trying to make it a comedy.
Yeah. I wasn't talking about them literally doing that, but they do that in the movie. But I was just saying it's so pretentious.
He literally at one point, Robert Pattinson is shaking a bookcase and he's like, "Goddamn farts!" That's what that happens. That's a real line in the movie.
Yeah, among many other.
But it's not a comedy. They're trying to say that this is this terrifying, horrifying.
It wasn't scary
movie, and it wasn't.
There wasn't anybody in the theater that made like any noise other than laughter.
It didn't even have cheap jump scares. And a lot of good horror movies have at least one jump scare because they're trying to set a bass tone, and that's didn't happen.
The mood here in this movie was just bewilderment. Mm-hmm. It wasn't anything positive. It wasn't anything like negative in a way where you're like, okay, this is horrific. It was just strange. Mm-hmm. So
that's how we feel about this. Let us obviously know how you feel about it. Are we like dumb, ignorant people? Yeah. Are we missing the huge underlying thing, how this symbolizes American people in day's age? Like, I don't know. Tell me. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. We do lots of different reviews like this one. Most of the time, we actually kind of like the movie, so that helps.
We're actually pretty easy critics, too.
Very easy. Very easy critics. I am very easy to please. Like... That's a thing about me, and especially between Tony and I, is that I'm the person that's like, well, I was entertained.
Yeah, blah, blah, blah. And like I'm fairly easy to entertain with this sort of stuff. Like, but it just, I would say avoid it. And if you're really into it, maybe try to watch it so then you know to avoid what Robert Eggars puts out next.
No, because he's great. He did The Witch so good. He's a good director and he's a great writer, but like I said, I think some like weird editing thing happened.
The best thing I could compare this to as far as quality is the difference between True Detective Season 1 and Season 2.
But that was
Season 1 is a masterpiece. Season 2 was a pile of dog poop.
Wait, but is it the same person?
Same showrunner. Nick Pizzolatto wrote it.
But that's not the... Oh, really?
Yeah, he directed some episodes.
I didn't mind the second... See, this is me. I didn't mind the second season of True Detective.
But anyway, we need to wrap this up. Please tell us what you thought of this movie. Please tell us we're not insane. Like...
Or, I don't know.
Or just tell us what you want. I don't care. Neither did this movie. So, we will talk to you guys later. Hit that like button, hit subscribe if you really enjoy us. Hit that Patreon button, go subscribe, and you will get awesome merch. And we will talk to you later.
Bye.